My fiancée got pregnant by my brother, and my mom was happy because she was going to be a grandmother. But 5 years later, she calls crying to ask me for a favor. The old bitch, 5 years ago, just a month before I turned 30, I found out my fiancée had been having an affair with my brother. The only reason they were even confessing to me was because she was pregnant and wanted to have the baby, my ex-fiancée Karen, 30, and my brother Chris, 33. Apparently, they had been sleeping together since Karen and I got engaged. Karen and I had been together since our senior year of high school, and also during college. So getting engaged was obviously the next step since we had been together for so long. However, within that, after getting engaged, she decided to cheat on me with my brother. The only reason it even happened was that a couple days after our engagement, my brother, he confessed that he had always had feelings for her. And he just felt like he had to say, because she was about to get married, and after that I couldn't tell her anything about these things anymore. Then she suddenly realized that she was also developing feelings for him gradually. Apparently he even flirted behind my back occasionally at family events and such. But she wasn't sure about him, which is why she stayed with me. I found out about all this stuff 5 years ago, just a few months before my wedding, when the two of them sat me down together with my parents and told me that they were planning to be together, and that Karen couldn't marry me anymore because she was in love with Chris, and they were expecting a child together that day. I felt very disgusted and almost refused to believe it, and told Karen that I wanted her to come home with me and end this relationship, whatever it was, with Chris. But my mother made it very clear that none of that was going to happen, and that Chris and Karen were going to be together, and I just had to make peace with it because it was her decision. I couldn't even believe my mother was supporting something like that. At least my father had the decency to look embarrassed and try to comfort me, but my mother just supported this blatantly, and even told me that if I had any problem with it, to keep it to myself because Karen was pregnant, and I had no right to bother her when she was in such a delicate condition. My mother was crazy about finally having a grandchild in the family, so she barely cared about what I was going through, and she also fought with me to try to justify what was happening after the confrontation. That day, Karen moved in with my family because her own parents didn't want to talk to her anymore after she told them the truth. Obviously, we had to cancel the wedding, and my parents covered the cost. So I didn't have to worry about any of that. However, I was kicked out of the family because I refused to talk to them. And for the past 5 years, we have had absolutely no contact. The only person who even bothered to try to contact me was my father, but I didn't even bother to talk to him. So there has been total silence from him after I cut ties with them. It took me a long time to get over what happened to me, because Karen and I had been together for a long time. I had really loved her, so it took me a lot of therapy to get over it. And even now, I wouldn't say that I'm really completely over it, but I'm dealing with it. The rest of the family had kept in touch with me though, and I found out from them that she had a child with my brother, and just a month after giving birth to her child, a paternity test confirmed that it was my brother's child and not mine, so there was no need to contact me after that either. And they ended up getting married and have been together. For the past 5 years I assumed that everything was going well for them, but about a week ago my mother called me out of the blue. And it took me by surprise because she was the one who supported Karen and Chris the most, like on an unhealthy level. So out of sheer curiosity, I decided to call her back after she sent me an email saying that she needed to talk to me. Urgently, when I called her, she gave me some pretty bad news while crying, and I found out that my brother had had a very serious accident. It was a hit-and-run case, and unfortunately, due to the impact, he had fallen into a coma, and there was no way of knowing how long it would take to recover. This had happened last week, and just 3 days later, the doctors said that things were pretty critical. At that time, my mother decided to call me and inform me about it. At first, I thought she was going to ask me to visit him and be there for the family, which I would have been willing to do, because despite everything, I think this is something very important, and it would still have been an expectation, reasonable enough for me, and I don't want to turn my back on someone who is in such a terrible condition. But then my mother completely changed the subject and said she wanted me to be there for Karen and my nephew. I didn't even understand what that meant. And then she told me that she now expected me to take my brother's place with them. When I asked her to elaborate, she told me that now that Chris was basically no longer there, I was to be there for Karen and her son. In every way, she didn't just mean financially, but she really expected me to take over and live with them so she could take care of them. She said she would have taken them into her home, but she wasn't getting younger, and it would be too much work to take care of all of them, and that's why she was calling me to inform me, and she expected me to make a decision on the same call, because time is of no importance. I obviously lost my patience because for 5 years she hadn't spoken to me, and now that she was finally talking to me, I expected her to do something so big. I could understand that Karen and her son were completely alone at the moment, and needed someone to be there for them, but that someone should have been someone from their immediate family, and not me, someone who she had betrayed, and not even bothered to apologize. So obviously, I immediately told my mother that I was not going to do anything like that, and that it was silly to expect her to say yes to that. And then she started arguing with me on the phone, and I had no time to waste already. I was pretty angry, and I didn't want to ruin my mood even more while talking to her, so I just hung up and then blocked her once again. I tried to go about my day as usual after that, but I just couldn't stop thinking about what Chris and Karen were going through, and I really felt bad for them, but obviously I wasn't going to do what my mother had asked me to do and take over my brother's place in her family, because that was just weird. He was still around, but it wasn't like he had passed away, and she acted like he was gone. I felt very insecure about this whole situation. So later that day I decided to call my dad instead, because I thought it would be more reasonable. My mom was very awkward talking to him after 5 years. No contact. But after some small talk, I asked him how Chris was doing, and he said things weren't looking too good right now. And then I told him about the conversation I had had with my mom earlier that day, and I was hoping he would have a reasonable outlook. But instead he also said my mom was right to expect that from me. That really shocked me because my dad used to be the most sensible of my parents, and now even he was saying such weird things. When I asked him if he really meant that, he said yes, and said Karen and I had a history anyway, and that I am part of the family too, no matter what our relationship has been. For the past 5 years, I am ultimately blood, and if they can count on someone to help the family, it should be me, and my mother's expectations are not exactly unreasonable. That really took me by surprise right now. I honestly have no idea what to do. For the past week, I have avoided talking to any member of my family, even other relatives, because I am just scared that someone will mention this to me, and then I will be forced to explain my decisions too. I feel a little like the bad guy here because I am refusing to help my family, and I know they really need me, at least emotionally, but financially I just honestly have no clue what to do, and I know what my mother is asking me to do is really strange and unreasonable, but at the same time I feel bad for turning it down outright. I haven't even gone to the hospital to see my brother, because I just feel very weird with this whole situation. I also haven't been able to talk to any of my friends about it since this is all very personal. They know how things have been between me and my family since my wedding was called off. But this is something a little bit weirder than that, honestly. And that's why I'm now posting this here on Datey, because I really think I need some opinions on what I should do. And both my friends and family are all going to have some kind of biased opinion. I really need advice because I think I'm going to lose my mind if I don't find an acceptable solution to all of this soon. I honestly feel like I'm going back to that phase of my life where I constantly thought about Karen and Chris right after I found out he had been cheating on me. And that was a really dark time, and I don't want to go back there since I've had a hard time getting out of it. So please, anyone who has anything to say, no matter how harsh the opinion may be, please just tell me, so I can or at least distract myself. Then I'm the bad guy for refusing to go see my family and help them after my brother got into an accident. Update 1. Hey guys. So I decided not to go see my family for the moment. It really is too much for me right now. I didn't even realize exactly how bad my anxiety had gotten in the last week, just from the things my parents were telling me. But I'm back on my anxiety meds now and trying to deal with it all. A lot of people have shown me love and support in the comments section of my original post, and even reached out to me personally in my DMs to let me know that they are there for me and that I'm not alone, which I greatly appreciate. Thank you so much for that. I've also talked to a couple of my close friends and confided in them about what's going on, because I really don't think I can deal with all of this on my own. And they've also told me that I can talk to them whenever I need to vent. I have also been told that my decision to not go see them right now is the right one, because right now it is the best decision I can make for myself, and I have to put myself first, no matter what is going on in everyone else's lives. So far, Chiz and my family have always put themselves first. So I should do the same, to be honest. I don't think I really need to be there for them emotionally either. They have each other. They can deal with this on their own. I was the only one who didn't have anyone from my immediate family to be there for me. In the aftermath of the wedding being called off, and finding out I had been cheated on, my own parents turned on me and chose my brother over me, even though he was the one who was wrong and should have been the one to leave the family. But anyway, all that is over now, and I am trying to move on. I won't be able to do that successfully if I'm back to them again. So I've blocked them all once again, and I'm going to stand by my decision to not have any contact with them. I'm really sorry about what happened to my brother, and I really hope he gets well soon, because no matter what I've done, I can't be the person who wishes anything bad to happen to anyone. So I hope things work out for them. But I'm out of here. I'm just going to focus on my own mental health now. And I'm considering going back to therapy because of the way I dealt with this and the way these things my parents said affected me. I really think I need to talk to a professional, because I don't think I'm handling all this as well as I thought, and all those old feelings are coming back to the surface once again. So I'm just going to take care of myself now. Update 2. I heard from a couple of relatives that my brother's condition is still pretty critical and isn't showing any signs of improvement. It's been almost 2 weeks, and he's still in the hospital. Things are really bad for the family, and I feel sad for them, but there's not much I can do. Everyone who knows my family has stopped by the hospital to see my brother at least once in the past 2 weeks and offered their condolences for the terrible accident that has taken place. Except I would have done it, but I also found out from my relatives that my parents have been bashing me to anyone who has visited them and have been painting me as the villain. Apparently, they're telling everyone that they asked me to come visit them and be there for the family, but I refused, and they accused me of saying things like that. This was karma for Marie me 5 years ago, and that my brother deserved it, this for the record. Obviously, I did not say anything like that. Some of them contacted me to confirm if it was true or not, because it didn't seem like something that I would say. Since I am usually nice to everyone, and when they asked me about it, I obviously told them that I didn't say those things, and that my parents were just making it up to make it seem like I was a terrible person. Probably to get some reaction out of me or something, because that's how they are. My parents really disappointed me that they were saying such things about me and making up stories just to portray me as the bad guy. Especially after they had ruined my life. Once I'm lucky that my relatives asked me about it, because if they had chosen to believe my parents, I don't think anyone in the family would be talking to me right now. For the past 5 years, I hadn't talked to my parents, but the rest of my family, my uncles and aunts, and of course my cousins had always been there for me. I really didn't want to lose that, and I guess my parents couldn't stand it. So, they decided to try and ruin that for me too. I just don't understand why they hate me so much. They literally never. I have done nothing. My brother and I have never been particularly close, and my parents have always had a special place for him since our childhood. But this seems unnecessary and excessive. Update 3. So I posted an update 2 days ago. And today my mother decided to contact me again. I had blocked them everywhere, so she had no choice but to come see me to talk to me. When I came back home from work, she was already there waiting for me. I honestly didn't even feel like talking to her because I was already exhausted from work. I almost decided to go back to the car, but then she saw me and had to go talk to her. I had no intention of letting her into my house because then it would be very difficult to get rid of her. So I decided to talk to her in the front yard, which turned out to be pretty bad for me as she eventually started yelling at me. And that also attracted the attention of the neighbors. The conversation started off as normal. She made some small talk with me and I had to answer her politely. But then I couldn't help it. And I ended up asking her why she had been saying made-up things about me just to portray me as the bad guy. I told her that it wasn't fair to me because I had never wished anything bad for my family, even after they had treated me like that, and I honestly just wanted to move on with my life. But even that was being made to me very difficult. I have been keeping these feelings to myself for a long time. So when I saw her, it just popped out of me, and I couldn't help it in the end. I just told her that, after everything that had happened, it was very hard for me to think of them as family, because they had never treated me like that, and I was very disappointed in their behavior. So whatever she had come to talk to me about could be done afterwards, because I had just come home from work. And I really wasn't in the mood to fight or talk to anyone about anything that was too emotionally draining. She had been listening to me calmly up until that point. But when I told her I didn't want to talk to her at that point, She got very angry and said she was just here to apologize for the same things I had mentioned, and said that she and my father had been thinking, well, they had been pretty upset by my initial response because I had refused to step up for my family and even visit my brother while he was in the hospital. But then they realized that I hadn't been treated exactly right for the past 5 years, and that I was obviously very upset about that even now. And that's why I wasn't visiting. She had come here to talk to me and to work things out between us because she felt like right now the family should stay together just for the sake of emotional stability. But after I told her I didn't want to talk to her at that point, she changed her mind and decided she was going to yell at me. Instead, she told me that apparently I should be thankful that I still have a family because after the way I reacted when I found out about my brother's accident, I was planning to cut myself off and make sure the rest of my relatives also stopped talking to me permanently. I didn't understand what she was talking about. So she explained that apparently she thought my reaction hadn't been sad enough when I found out about my brother's accident. She didn't even know what she expected me to do. And she said she had thought that when I had been told about my brother's accident, she would at least expect me to show some emotion. But she just sounded very indifferent on the phone call. Obviously, no matter what our personal relationships are, news like that was definitely going to affect me. And it really has, as I mentioned earlier. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, and that includes my family, despite our personal relationships. So I was definitely upset when I found out about his accident. Maybe that didn't come across on the phone call because she couldn't see my face, but her reasons were just completely unfounded and illogical. She even went as far as to say that the fact that I wasn't there for Karen and my nephew and didn't step up for them instead of my brother was just showing how much I cared about the family. I was just making things up again to justify how they were acting, and I truly believe that my parents have started to lose their minds, because these things are completely bizarre and unnecessary anyway. After she started yelling at me, I lost even more interest in talking to her, and just decided to walk into my house and ask her to leave. So after a while, I unlocked my front door and walked in. While she kept yelling at me, she tried to follow me inside, but I slammed the door in her face and told her to go away because I was seriously pissed. I didn't want to interact with her anymore. She argued with me, but I told her I would call the police, and that was when she finally left. But not before cursing me out and saying that I would face the consequences of this soon. I don't know what that means. I'm not even interested in knowing what that means. I just want to relax and move on with my life. Update 4th. Hi. It's been 26 days since the accident. My family finally had some good news to share with everyone today. Obviously, they didn't tell me personally. I found out about it through my cousins, but the good news is that my brother is finally showing some signs of improvement. He's not in a coma anymore and is responding better. So, that's a good sign. I really hope he can pull through and just get better from this point, because the last month has been really stressful for everyone as a family, even for me, even though I'm not even a part of the family anymore, and I was cut off a long time ago. But the way my parents have been behind me in the last 26 days, real M, has shown me that they are unbalanced, and I think they were just taking it out on me. After my last interaction with my mother, which I talked about in my last update, I didn't hear from her for a couple of days, but then my dad called me to scold me. Instead, he used a different number than he usually uses, so I couldn't figure out it was him when I answered the call. He started yelling at me almost immediately, so I didn't even have time to hang up when I did realize it was him. He was also very sneaky about it. He tried to take me by surprise so he would have a chance to yell at me. Instead of calling me at any normal time during the day, he decided to call me at 5 a.m. when he knew I would be sleeping and would have to wake up to answer his call, and my brain would be all fuzzy. So a couple of days after my interaction with my mother, my dad called me at 5 a.m. And after almost 3 calls phone, I finally answered the 4th one, and he immediately started yelling at me about how ungrateful I was and how he wished I had never been born. He said he would make sure the rest of the family never spoke to me again because I was a terrible person for not even bothering to go see my brother in the hospital when he was hurting so much, and for not being there for the family after ranting for almost 5 minutes. He was the one who hung up because I was still trying to process everything that was happening. By the time I was done with that, he had already hung up the phone and blocked me the moment it happened. It wasn't very funny, but now I find it pretty funny because my parents are so desperate to make me look like a bad guy and yell at me for arbitrary things that they are willing to go to such great lengths and go to such extremes, just for these reasons. I've already said that I thought they were taking it out on me. They just needed to get away from it, and as is usual, I had to be there for the family. But it's okay, because my father couldn't get the rest of the family to turn against me, because they know I'm not at fault, and they also know what happened 5 years ago. Anyway, now that my brother's condition is getting better, I just hope they leave me alone and focus on him. Update CI? It's so strange coming back here after almost 3 years. So much has happened since then. And it's mostly been for the better. I now live in Germany for work. I have been here for the last year and a half. I also started dating someone. My girlfriend and I have been together for the last 8 months. And it's been really good for the last 3 years. I have had absolutely no contact with my family. And that has also been blissful, if I'm honest. I have kept contact with my relatives, those who were nice to me. So that's different. My brother is completely fine now. He survived the accident, and although it took him a long time to get back to normal now, it's okay. Karen came to me after my brother started to recover to talk to me and apologize for everything that had happened in the past. I simply told her that at this point, an apology just wasn't necessary. She came to me after everyone found out I was moving to Germany downstairs and visited me to apologize. And it was on behalf of her and my brother. My brother couldn't come see me because he was too ashamed of the things that had happened 8 years ago. But honestly, none of it mattered anymore. So I simply told him that I forgave him. I didn't even care. And that part was true. I didn't really care because I was moving on with my life to better things since then. I've been here and my parents don't talk to me anymore, and I'm really happy about that because I wouldn't allow that to happen again under any circumstances. I'm finally happy now, anyway, now that everyone is, and the day better, I get back to my life. Many thanks to the people who showed me so much love and concern when I was posting here and also kept asking me about me in the comments and stuff like that. Even after I stopped posting update 6, I only update because some people wanted to know a little more about me living in Germany. I had been offered a job here, and I accepted because I needed a change of air. Without a doubt, it was all very good for me. And as I said, I met someone, so it turned out to be a good decision for me too. I forgot to tell. But my brother found out that when I was in a coma, I was offered by my parents to replace him. So the relationship between my brother and them is strained to say the least. That was what Karen told me. Who also said that my brother was not allowing them to see his grandson at the moment. Even Karen said she had no idea what had happened with that offer. But well, that was all at.